guess what time it is? It's cookie season. I'm Ella here, your favorite Girl Scout, and we have your oldies but goodies. Lemonades, dimmits, peanut butter sandwiches, and more. This year we have a new cookie flavor called the Explore Mug. My goal is 200 boxes, so please make that happen. You're gonna buy cookies anyway, so why not buy them from me?
What's up, everyone? Welcome to This Day in Philly Sports History for February 9th, 2026. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Monday edition of the podcast. It's officially the end of football season. No more meaningful games for, maybe 6 months or so. So buckle up. We got the Sixers and Flyers, and of course, the Phillies on the horizon. Yay. All right, let's rewind the weekend as we always do on Monday, brought to you by Philly Goat. Go to phillygoat.com for all of your Philly sports apparel needs. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. Hey, football season's over. It's a good time to actually go to Philly Goat, do a little shopping, get ready for the spring and the Phils season. So go check that out. Super Bowl. All right, there was a game. 29-13, Seahawks won. Did not win any of my blocks. Did decently betting, I guess. I went 6-5 on all of my bets, up a unit. So pretty much the same way football season went for me. But everybody's talking about Bad Bunny and the halftime show. This was a boring Super Bowl. Let's be real. This was not an entertaining Super Bowl at all. It maybe because we're coming down from the high of winning it last year. But I don't know. I just kind of felt like leading into it, there was no buzz for it. Even the game just really felt more, maybe again, because we're coming off the high, but it felt like more like just a regular 425 Sunday game out in San Francisco to me. But congrats to the Seahawks. At least it wasn't the Patriots, I guess. Looking ahead now. Offseason starts now. We got a lot to deal with and talk with about the Eagles as we go. One of the biggest questions this offseason is whether or not the Eagles are going to trade A.J. Brown. He was on Michael Parsons' podcast over, I guess, at some point during last week. Said he was excited for next year. Was looking forward to what the new coaches have to come in. Said Philly is home. He's fortunate to be a part of some great leadership in the locker room. He said sometimes change is good. Sometimes change is needed. Maybe this was him shutting down the rumors. Maybe it's a play to say he's a good guy and blame it on the... I don't know. I'd rather have AJ back, especially with new offensive play callers and coaches. So I don't know. It seemed pretty positive, but for me, you got to keep AJ. And I know there's a lot of Eagles fans and even listeners to this podcast who are a little bit younger who don't remember. This is nothing compared to what happened with Terrell Owens. Nothing. So if you think this is drama and this is AJ being a diva, this is nothing. This is not. AJ's not doing sit-ups on his driveway. AJ's not in his quarterback's face on the sideline. AJ's not saying we'd be better off with Josh Allen as our quarterback than Jalen Hurts. So this is, again, all nothing. And all of that stuff with T.O. happened in a 6-month period. So AJ, we need AJ to come back. But let me know your thoughts on AJ. 267-495-8531. I do think that's one of the biggest, obviously Howie's got his work cut out for him, but that's one of the biggest questions going into this offseason is, will he come back? I hope he does. I don't have any kind of inside information, but I really think the team is better with A.J. Brown. And if you want to go all in and you think your championship window is open, you don't trade a guy like A.J. Brown. That's just my opinion. But let me know your thoughts on the Back to the Future voice and text line. Also, rest in peace to Sonny Jurgensen, who passed away over the weekend. He was quarterback for the Eagles from 1957 to 1963, helped lead them to the NFL championship in 1960. He is a Hall of Famer. He is an Eagles Hall of Famer, and he's on the 1960s All-NFL Decade team. So rest in peace, Sonny. Condolences and thoughts and prayers to your family. All right, Sixers were in action Saturday night out in Phoenix. They came away with a 109-103 win. Joe had 33. Tyrese had 29. Sixers have now won 6 of 7. I know. But they have one more game on the West Coast tonight. They're in Portland. And then they come back home. I did see that Tyrese Maxey will be participating in the three-point contest. Hopefully that does not have the same impact that sometimes being in the home run derby has on players, but I don't think so with the three-point contest. So pretty cool. No Sixer has ever won the three-point contest. And then Daryl Morey did speak on Friday around noon, addressed the Jarrett McCain trade, said it was supposed to be part of a bigger move. He was going to use those pieces to make his next move. Unfortunately, nothing ever materialized. So essentially, it was a tax duck. Basically, they traded Jared McCain so Josh Harris can stay under the luxury tax threshold. This team is a dysfunctional team. I've said it before, and I get sucked in all the time. I'm still halfway sucked in right now. But the Sixers are the Dallas Cowboys of the NBA. 100%. And if you take a step back and think about it logically, we 100% are. It's ridiculous. All right, what happened this weekend in Philly sports history? First, February 7th, go back to 2015, Philly U. Yes, Philadelphia University, before it became Thomas Jefferson University, beat Post 80-60 down in East Falls. Herb McGee got his 1,000th career win as coach, and at the time, he was only the second player on any level of NCAA basketball to do it, behind only Coach K. So congrats to Herb McGee, who got his 1,000th win on this day in 2015. And then on February 8th, go back to 1936. It was the first NFL draft. It was a Burt Bell idea. Former Eagles owner. He instituted the whole worst to first reverse order of picking college players. The Eagles, of course, had the first pick in that draft, drafted running back Jay Berwanger, who was the Heisman Trophy winner, first ever Heisman Trophy winner. Unfortunately, he never played for the Eagles because at the time, again, the pro game was just not where it was at. People stopped playing in college and then went on to regular jobs. So Jay Berwanger, Eagles' first ever draft pick on this day in 1936, did not play for the team. And then 1988, Temple, for the first time in school history, was the number one team in the AP poll. They were actually the first team in city history to be ranked number one. That happened on this day in 1988, that great team by John Chaney. And then in 2018, it was the Super Bowl 52 parade. What a day that was. Outstanding. Just people everywhere. So much fun. Again, last year's was fun, but nothing will ever top that first one. That happened on this day in 2018. And that is Rewind the Weekend, brought to you by Philly Goat. Go to phillygoat.com, check out what they have, and use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. All right, the Olympics are in full gear, and we're going to continue our Olympic spotlight. These are athletes with local ties, and we're going to start today with Andrew Heo, who is a short track speed skater. He is a Warrington native, moved to Utah. He participates in the 500 meter, the 1500 meter, and the 200 meter mixed relay. This is his second Olympics. He is looking to medal. He did take the bronze in the 2024 World Championships in the 2,000 meter mixed relay. His events are on February 10th, February 14th, and February 18th, starting with the mixed relay, then the 1,500, and then the 500. So, Andrew, go make the area proud. Come home with a medal in short track speed skating. Hell, come home with more than one. But that is our Olympic spotlight. Andrew Heo from Warrington is today's athlete that we spotlight. And then, of course, going back to Friday's trivia question, I asked who were the three guys that scored for the Eagles in Super Bowl 39. That would be Brian Westbrook, L.J. Smith, and Greg Lewis. A lot of people were saying Todd Pinkston, but no, it was in fact Greg Lewis. Who caught that pass. All right, and then some quick housekeeping. Be sure to follow me on all social media platforms at Philly Jimbo. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mott. Continue to spread the word. Don't forget to go check out the latest episode of the Brotherly Birds Breakdown. We do give some Super Bowl picks, but we talk a lot about the coaching, losing Jeff Stoutland, Vic Fangio, the offense, a little bit of everything. So go check that out wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And of course, we are proud members of the Clashing Conferences Sports Fan Networks. Go to clashingconferences.com to see how you can get involved today. And then our trivia question, Eagles, and you know one of these answers. Who are the Heisman Trophy winners that were drafted by the Eagles? Hit me up on the Back to the Future voice and text line or the Discord channel, which is in the description. But which Heisman Trophy winners have the Eagles drafted in their history? And if you were paying attention, I already gave you one. Turn heads and bring the hype with a custom hype chain from Lotwin. Perfect for youth sports, fantasy football, or just flexing your pride. Go to Lotwin.com, use the promo code TCCPOD for 10% off your order. That's Lotwin.com, promo code TCCPOD for 10% off. Get your custom hype chain and get hype with Lotwin. All right, February 9th. First, we're going to go back to 1966. And on this day in 1966, Philadelphia was awarded an NHL franchise. They were a part of the next six. The Bay Area was in it, St. Louis, Pittsburgh, but the Philadelphia was awarded an NHL franchise. Ed Snyder led the move. Ed Snyder used to work for the Eagles. The former Eagles owner, Jerry Wolman, was involved in this as well. How did the Flyers get their names? Well, it was a naming contest. 9-year-old Alex Stockard was credited with giving the Flyers their name, but in fact, Ed Snyder's sister, Phyllis, was the one who originally recognized and thought about the Flyers, all about the speed and the grace that they look on the ice. Ed Snyder loved it, but there was Alex Stockard who did submit for the naming contest and name Flyers, so he is credited with winning the naming contest, and the rest, as they say, is history. But Philadelphia was awarded an NHL expansion franchise on this day in 1966. Fast forward all the way to 1995. Sticking with the Flyers, a huge trade for the Flyers, and on this day, they sent Mark Recchi and a third-round pick to Montreal for John LeClair, Eric Desjardins, and Gilbert Dion. Recchi would eventually come back to the Flyers in 1999, but this trade between LeClair and Desjardins, two of the all-time greats in franchise history, helped lead them to the Stanley Cup Finals along with Eric Lindros in 1997. But a huge day as John LeClair is traded to the Flyers. And then in 1999, Penn welcomed Princeton to the Palestra. Princeton had a 34-game winning streak against Ivy League opponents. Penn jumped out early, 29-0, led it 29-3 at one point, 33-9 at halftime. Princeton made a furious comeback, though, and won it 50-49 after being down 29-3. And actually, I don't think they started the game 29-0. I think Princeton scored 3, and then Penn went on a 29-0 run. Either way, Princeton comes back, but Fran Dunphy's Penn Quakers would get the last laugh on Princeton, beating them in the final game of the season, 73-48, to get the Ivy League's automatic bid to the tournament. But Penn blows the lead as Princeton wins their 35th straight Ivy League game, beating the Quakers 50-49 at the Palestra on this day. And then finally, we'll go to 2020. Sixers beat the Bulls 118-111 at the Wells Fargo Center. Furkan Korkmaz, had 31 off the bench to lead the Sixers. Joe had 28 points and 12 rebounds. Ben Simmons messed around and had a triple-double, 19 points, 10 boards, 10 assists, as the Sixers improved to 33 and 21. Things were looking good for them. Little did we know, a month later, COVID would shut everything down, and then it would go to the bubble and just completely not do anything. But Furkan Korkmaz led the Sixers with 31 points off the bench on this day in 2020. Ben Simmons messing around with a triple-double as the Sixers beat the Bulls 118 to 111. And, of course, the big story on this day in Philly sports history, we don't have to go far for this one, going back to just last year, Super Bowl 59. Eagles beat the Chiefs 40-22, and we talked a lot last week about Super Bowl 52 and just what it meant mentally and emotionally to Eagles fans. I think last year's, it definitely was different. It was a different feeling, but fulfilling nonetheless, in the sense that it was almost like, okay, we belong now. Because, I mean, as magical and great as Super Bowl 52 was, it was more, all right, it was kind of fluky, backup quarterback. 9 times out of 10, the Eagles lose that game. I think if you go back to last year, 9 times out of 10, the Eagles win that game the way they were playing. So just an absolute belt-to-ass moment. I mean, it was almost right from the start. The defense came to play with all of the sacks. You had Coop's pick six. You had the dagger. Just in a game, too, that the Chiefs shut down Saquon Barkley. They didn't want him to beat them. They did a good job, to their credit, and I think Jalen, really winning MVP, came into his own. But I mean, so many ridiculous moments in that game. Zach Baun's ridiculous interception, just outstanding. Jalen, 2 touchdown passes, ran one in. Just like I said, kind of that we belong type moment. Much different feeling, but it was our second Super Bowl win. I'm hungry for another one. But on this day in 2025, Eagles beat the Chiefs 40-22 to win their second Super Bowl in 7 years. Great defensive performance. Jalen Hurts taking home MVP, forcing 3 Chiefs turnovers, sacking Patrick Mahomes 6 times, put it on a shirt. Remember, they said that after the Super Bowl 57. So just an dominant performance by the Eagles. And again, for me, it was sort of the we've arrived moment, if that makes sense. It wasn't, oh my goodness, we can't do this, we can't do that. It was fluky. We got 2 now. And I always talk about the Super Bowl, winning the Super Bowl, like being in that exclusive club. We definitely upgraded and got a little bit more room in the Super Bowl club. But I want to move up higher. But Eagles beat the Chiefs 40-22 on this day in 2025. Belt to ass. Just a complete dominant performance. One of the biggest dominant performances ever. It was 34-0 at one point before the Eagles kind of called off the Dogs a little bit. What a moment. What a moment. And then finally, our Black History Month spotlight, forged in Philly. We're going to take a look at Joe Jellybean Bryant. He's a Bartram High graduate, went to LaSalle, played for the Sixers. He was versatile, had a high basketball IQ, went over and played and coached overseas and in the WNBA, played overseas for a little bit. He was a role player, but it was a major contributor. He was one of those guys that played a role, knew what his job was, and he did it well. His public league experience, his Big Five experience played a huge role when he got to the NBA, doing those gritty little things that sometimes don't show up in the stat box. Typical Philly blue-collar lunch pail guy, Joe Jellybean Bryant. He was forged by Philly to value dependability, professionalism, and a team-first mindset. That is Joe Jellybean. He wasn't splashy, but he was a hard worker who always had a place to play and coach. So essentially, his hard work and dedication that he learned in the gyms and the playgrounds and the streets of Philadelphia served him well throughout his college and professional career and coaching career for that matter. You might know him better as Kobe Bryant's dad. More on that later this week. But Joe Jellybean Bryant is today's Black History Month spotlight, forged in Philly. He was not splashy, but man, was this dude a hard worker. On this day in 2020, Sixers beat the Bulls 118-111. Furkan Korkmaz, just love saying his name, 31 points for the Sixers. Ben Simmons with a triple-double. Penn blew a 29-3 lead after going on a 29-0 run against Princeton, but would get the last laugh on this day in 1999. 1995, John LeClair and Eric Desjardins are traded for by the Flyers, setting up 2 years later a nice little run to the Stanley Cup. And then, of course, the Flyers were awarded, Philadelphia, I should say, was awarded an NHL franchise that would become the Flyers on this day in 1966. Don't forget to let me know the answer to the trivia question. What Heisman Trophy winners were drafted by the Eagles? And again, if you were paying attention, I gave you one already. We'll have more on the Sixers Trailblazers. Will not be up to see that game. Let me know your thoughts on the Super Bowl, what the Eagles have to do. Jarrett McCain, A.J. Brown, everything is fair game. Kind of in the transition period here because no more football. The Flyers are on an Olympic break. The Sixers are getting ready to go to the All-Star break. So kind of low-key week here as we kind of transition from football focus all the time into spring training's right around the corner. We'll focus and move into the baseball focus. Always a sad time here at this day in Philly sports history. No more Eagles, but trust me, this is going to be an interesting offseason. Yeah, it will be. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for February 9th, 2026. My name's Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Monday. The weather's going to get warmer, I promise. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.